Like many African countries, Malawi is still a shadow of its potential. Home to around 20 million people, it lies landlocked between Tanzania, Mozambique, and Zambia in southeastern Africa. This is my first time here, and as we drive into the capital, Lilongwe, what's most noticeable is the lack of infrastructure. The main road is lined with empty makeshift stalls and mud houses, and everywhere are women walking the dusty roads and men carrying charcoal, wood, and even sugar cane on their bicycles. A number of Japanese and Chinese companies are working on upgrading the streets that haven't been improved since the country gained independence in 1964. It's hard to believe that more than 900 non-governmental organizations are here. They claim to improve things, but most have been on site for the last 15 to 30 years, and there's little evidence to show what they've done. Progress in health infrastructure and agricultural development has barely begun. The Alliance for a Green Revolution in Africa, AGRA, is an African-led partnership working across the continent to help millions of small-scale farmers and their families. At least, that's what they claim. For 17 years, AGRA has been promising to transform the lives of Malawians and teach them advanced sustainable farming, but I don't see any evidence of that. The main economic driver in Malawi is agriculture. This sector employs some 80% of the population. I am here during the tilling season when Malawians of all ages are out on the fields preparing by hand the soil for the next planting season. Many of the more than 4 million small-scale farmers here who depend entirely on their produce for income are worried that there isn't enough seed and fertilizer for when the first summer rains come. What's more, Malawi is prone to cyclones. In February last year, the longest tropical cyclone ever recorded, Cyclone Freddy, washed out in a matter of hours many communities and households. Millions of Malawians were left with no choice but to turn to eating soybean and maize for survival. Usually, these are kept for the next planting season, hence the shortage now.
This is the Njewa market where farmers sell their produce. Farming is our main source of income. Through this business, we can take our kids to school and feed our families. But for many of us, we don't have the capital, and government must help us to boost our market. We produce enough mangoes to export to neighboring countries like Zambia and South Africa. We need seeds. In times like the cholera outbreak, we end up utilizing the seeds meant for the next planting season. The lockdowns and restrictions are major problems for us.
I've come to Malawi to find Lucia Banda. She's a female farmer that AGRA, the Alliance for a Green Revolution in Africa, showcases as its success story. Initially, I read about this woman from the New Scientist, a London and New York-based weekly science and technology publication. An article published on it was praising AGRA's work in Malawi. It takes me and my crew 2 long days of navigating the mountains bordering Malawi and Mozambique before we find our first real clue as to where she lives. Tip-off after tip-off has led to nothing, but eventually our translator talks to these local taxi drivers who helped us. We finally made it in Chinji. We're looking for Mombaso village. We haven't had good luck so far. We went to the district office and we asked for this village, and it led us to nowhere. We finally called someone who lives in the area, in Chinji district, and they gave us a lead, and he said that yes, it's one of the farming villages. So We're still following our clues, leading us to that. And I'm sitting here wondering, how did an American newspaper find this village that no one in Mchinji district seemed to know? So we have a lead and we're following that. We finally find a single mother of 5 living in a mud house. Like many households in this area, she depends solely on farming for her livelihood. What happened to her success story?
It's really hard, especially with everything that happened during the cyclone.
After doing everything Agra told her to, Lucy is now back where she started, at risk of being plunged back into poverty.
I don't want to go back to the state I was in before. I can see myself slipping back to poverty. I do not have enough seed. I want to go back to the state I was before, when I could sell my farm produce.
Lucy's story is the same as her neighbors. These women are asking for fertilizer and seeds. I corner Agra Malawi and demand some answers. So I wanted to know, like, some of the work that you get to do on a personal level with these farmers. Is it enough for them to take care of themselves in the long run? Is it sustainable?
What has happened is that we have capitalized on the village savings and loan associations, a cooperative approach, but that has 75% plus women representation. And so these pull together their resources, their cash over the year. And Mrs. Magombo and the members have testified that in the past they were just saving for consumption. But now with our coming in as Agra, they are saving with a purpose to access farm inputs so that they can invest in production. Without taking the technologies downscale to Mrs. Magombo and Lucy, nothing can be achieved.
To help us understand the state of agriculture in Malawi, I decided to visit the Ministry of Agriculture. The minister agrees to talk to us and makes clear the role of foreign organizations in the country's agriculture sector. Agra, it turns out, is not the only one with false promises and a bleak record of success.
We work with development partners. We call them development partners and not donors, because now we are moving away from just receiving, but we tell people what we need help with. As a country, we know what we are able to do, and we know the shortfalls that we have. So now what we're doing is we are making sure that every development partner is aligning to what we as a country want. That's why we have Vision 2063.
Another problem that's facing Malawi is food security. As many as 3 million Malawians are estimated to be on the brink of starvation. The World Food Programme operates in the country. I want to find out exactly what it's doing. The World Food Programme's budget for 2019 to 2023 was $307 million. It claims it spent only a fraction of that, just under $50 million to meet its 6-month net requirements. Many of its programs are short-term and temporary, like the donation of maize to one district and an undisclosed amount of cash transferred for 3 months to another. We reached out to the World Food Programme to better understand the organization's contribution to battling Malawi's food insecurity, but they declined to grant us an interview.
In Malawi, we have not fully recovered from the cyclone Freddy, So in terms of preparedness, those are some of the things. How do you prepare? Apart from having enough infrastructure, apart from having, healthy workforce, capable of handling, such crises, apart from also systems strengthening, because you need to coordinate, our systems, they should be able to pick things up.
It's not only in the agriculture sector, the health sector too has a lot that needs to be done. It's not enough to label a country as simply prone to the faster spread of diseases without implementing sustainable solutions. Malawi's fragile system is not a phenomenon. The World Health Organization's decade-long presence in Malawi should spell a different story. Yet financial year after financial year, the strategy keeps changing. Malawi's overwhelmed health system is still to recover from COVID-19 losses, but is already facing another battle of diseases thought to have been eradicated years ago.
The infrastructure for health is not improved through the decades. And the other thing that I have an issue with is that they are influenced by millionaires and billionaires who are not medically trained. I think they should be there to guide the nations, but do not dictate to the nations what they have to do and force nations to accept what their policies are. Because every nation is different. It's like you're different from me. We'll need to, got to adjust to the management of different things with, in a slightly different according to the needs of the nation and the resources of the nations.
We reached out to the World Health Organization in Malawi for comment, but they too chose to not respond.
If they strengthened you so that you can walk on their own, you'd have no need for the WHO. If you look at OECD countries that have competent, well-funded, sustainable health systems, the WHO has a little role on day-to-day running of the health system. It might come in when there's a pandemic outbreak like SARS, H1N1. But in countries that are low, middle-income countries, the WHO is involved in keeping the health system alive. But there are never any concrete plans to have a well-functioning, independent healthcare system in those countries.
Excessive aid to Africa is often confused with development, while there are also many who argue that Africans should stop relying on foreign assistance and take responsibility for their own advancement. Decades after independence, too many African countries are still mired in poverty. Their populations no better off than they were years ago. Inga Mzileni, BGTN, Malawi.